energetic aspects of narcissist empaths, trauma and relationships. My name is Jona Bryndis from transCODES. Today we want to talk about the recovery process, so the stages that we go through and the different challenges, also the options that we have. And to increase the awareness, we're going to talk about what to expect, what your options are, what is possible and what isn't, to find closure. That is closure, of course, and practical tips and strategies. But the most important thing is to hear from you guys what it is that you have experienced in real life, or what you're up against, or what you're afraid of. This is what we do these workshops for, okay? And I'm trying to do my best to bring in as much information and commentary here, or food for thought, so that you can reframe your experience. Is here anybody there who would like to share about their personal experience in regards to recovering from a narcissistic relationship? And let's define this real quick. A narcissistic relationship is something where we've noticed that there were toxic or abusive patterns in our relationship that kind of refer back to one out of two people basically showing predatory behavior towards the other. So in such a relationship, one will always or continually feel better, and the other one will continually to feel worse. So it's toxic. That means it cannot sustain itself. There's damage there. Whichever that damage is, we're going to look into deeper here. But that's what a narcissistic relationship is, okay? This can be with a partner. This can be with a parent. We've illuminated this in the first three parts here, where we've looked into these different kinds of relationship and how the shows and how the tactics and the manipulation and all that. So that would all be, if you haven't watched those videos yet, I would have to refer to those, simply because we don't have enough time for this. But who of you would like to share something real life from, recovering from a narcissistic relationship, be it parents, be it with an ex-partner, co-parent, maybe, those are all aspects here that we are dealing with. Okay, just making sure. Good audio and video. Thank you very much for this feedback.
Hi, it's Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
I'll add $1.50 to this. I talked the last meeting about my mom, and like you said, listen to the video because there's not much point in going through all that again. I did have a very toxic partner, and I have called him my doppelganger of dysfunction. And I have to be very cautious how I speak or think about that relationship even now, because I can be very not okay with myself about it, about why did I stay in that long? Why was I so stupid? And I know why is not the right answer, but for the most part, I can see it. I can see the benefit of it and whatnot now, but once in a while, ego goes wild and just says, can you believe you were so stupid and blind and desperate and, fill in the blank. It was big.
This is a live demonstration of the trauma, actually. When you're in a predatory, abusive, toxic relationship, and I want to set the whole cluster of this sort of total self beat up. I want to take that and set that aside. I don't want you to feel bad for this right now, okay? Because this is part of the trauma. All right.
Right. But I also have another one I want to add to that before you jump. You go ahead and springboard off of that, because I'm totally into whatever you say. Cause I'll still say why till probably I'm dead, but still. But the other thing I want to talk about, Jona, which didn't click until a minute ago when you introduced the topic tonight, and I thought, the one that I am the most brutal about, the one that the relationship that I am most toxic is the one with myself. When I allow that voice that you just heard describing the other one, when I allow that one to be narcissist, which is can be my narcissistic ego, to beat up me. And it didn't even click about that loop, and like I said, until a minute ago when you were talking
It's
about it, I thought,
wonderful. So
holy shit.
this is another life demonstration of what sharing can do for us. It is that
Mm,
moment we want to share something, when we just want to talk about something, when things start to connect in our brain. It may not even have been what I said. It's just the fact that you are actually trying to lay it out. And as
right.
you do that, you access different parts of your brain. This is why sharing
Yeah.
is so healing, because it makes things visible for you that you couldn't see before, even though they
Oh,
were
I never saw that. I always saw that, like that critical inner voice, as being my ego and just like this toxic thing, but I never saw it as being the narcissist part of me that has no sympathy. When it goes full bore and crazy, there's no apologies, there's no sympathy that comes from that. And it's not until the soft part of me comes out and calms it all back down again. So thank you. If I got nothing out of all of this, I got that's huge.
That's huge. And Cheryl, and this for everybody, because we are like part four. We're like in the seventh hour of this. Okay, so I can't really go back and repeat everything, but I want to point out a few fundamentals about the trauma that occurs through having been with toxic people. Okay, toxicity is contagious. All right, which means that there is something, some kind of residue that always rubs off on us. But part of the trauma is our utterly destroyed sense of normal and the inability to discern. This is what we're left with, and we're going to go through this in detail. And why am I saying this? If a person, let's say you, Cheryl, has been surrounded by narcissistic personalities, say, okay, people who showed strong narcissistic behaviors, your sense of normal is skewed, is distorted. You don't know any different. This is how it's been modeled to you. This is how you were conditioned. And those of us who had narcissistic parents, we were primed. That's even the pre-conditioning phase. Okay? And in addition to this comes the narcissistic nature of our own ego. All right? Ego is narcissistic in nature. Every time we talk about ego, we talk about that inner narcissist. Period. Okay? That's why pointing the fingers at others and saying, oh, that's a narcissist, isn't quite all right. But just because we all have a narcissistic ego, just because we all have this egotism or egocentrism in us, doesn't mean that we all choose to behave that way. Okay, there's a moral, there's an ethical aspect that comes into that. But when a person was raised and surrounded by this type of toxicity, the unfiltered narcissism of the ego displayed and executed, it is absolutely normal to have that part in you, because this is what shaped you, Cheryl. And how do we know that we have been shaped that way? By our critical inner voice. The critical inner voice is the mouthpiece of that. And what you just said is really instrumental for most here. Because most here, we go at least through a one phase where we asked ourselves if it was if we're the narcissist. Okay, it's very important to understand your critical inner voice is the mouthpiece of your inner narc. Okay, and all outer narcs that you've ever been exposed to. So if you've had a track record in your life of having been in relationship with narcs, parents, siblings, partners. Okay? I want you to strengthen that part in you, that softer part that you mentioned, the compassion part in you. Okay? And every question as to why becomes very simple to answer, Cheryl. Because that's the only way you know. Nobody's ever taught you a different way. Okay? So for you, being here and having arrived at a place where you can openly talk about these things without feeling judged, you're healing yourself. You're rebuilding your sense of self. You're rediscovering who you truly are. You may have displayed many narcissistic traits or behaviors in your life yourself as well. Oh
Yeah,
well.
maybe a couple.
Oh well.
You know,
You now know
it's
why.
it's the beauty of the way you present things, Yona, because you peel back the layers, right? And you peel them back slowly and thoroughly, and you drop hints along the way of the Easter eggs that are coming down the row.
Mhm,
But my ego wouldn't be able to hear this. Well,
mhm,
my ego, all of me wouldn't be able to hear this if they weren't peeled back a little bit at a time and a time. And that's the beauty of your skill set is you can unwrap things in an order that I can stack them up and open up the box. It's phenomenal. And thank you for the love and the gentleness and the firm pressure as you do this. It's so cool. And that piece, I mean, how many times have you said it? And I never heard it until the stack fell open. Beautiful. Thanks. This is awesome.
You're welcome.
I like myself more now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Wonderful. So that's healing.
Yay!
Okay, that's healing. And it's not really about my skill set. It's about, you have to
Oh,
understand, it's about the filters that we have as the mindsets, the rigidities that we have. And the only thing that qualifies me to do this, okay, guess what that is?
Experience?
I know.
Haven't walked in those
I
shoes?
know ego. And the way I talk is I talk to your true self
Hmm.
in a way that your ego cannot detect it, in a
Well,
way that it will just not hear it. And so your true self will say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And your inner ego, your inner narc will say, oh, whatever she said. Uh-huh. So I strengthen your true self until that one day when your true self is so strong that it can uncover it all by itself.
that's beautiful.
You know what I mean? So you have to learn how to bypass the ego. You can't go against it. That's why I keep saying the ego is not your enemy. No, the ego, the inner narc, okay, that we all have, is the traumatized part of us. But there is the present self, the 3D self, okay, that can get traumatized by the inner narc.
Hmm.
And that's the part that we need to actively heal in order to go back and then change our story, to reframe our story.
It
To
also
what my life
speaks
then.
so much, for me anyway, of the attraction to be treated disrespectfully from the outside because it's such a strong vibration on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we talk numerous times about repeating behavior patterns with other people over and over again, seeking more insanity or whatever, and that makes because it's like a shit magnet, like you say, but it's like a magnetic attraction because the force is so strong, like energetically.
It is.
A
It's
pull.
the magnetics. It's a gravity that is actually happening within ourselves.
Yeah, I can totally see it now coming out. Like it's all in front of me right now. It makes perfect sense. It's not
The
just words anymore. It's just there. It's like holy shit. Like the negative and the positive ions are attracting each other, and I'm like, whoa.
Mhm. The problem here with the new age sort of new modern spirituality community is that narcissism has discovered New Age as one of the most wonderful gaslighting platforms ever existed.
Yeah, yeah,
On top of social media, which allows, the radius to expand.
yeah.
The problem with this spirituality, New Age spirituality, is that it comes in with other rigid mindsets that promote narcissism. They promote narcissism, like if you think back of maybe 100 years ago, when things were rougher and people had to be more real in a way, right? Even just to make their daily living, to survive and so forth. There wasn't so much space for all this diddle daddling and gaslighting and crazy making. Do you know what I mean? Today, well, we don't really have real life survival issues unless, we go through a crisis. But, for the most part, at least people listening here, are not actually in a direct survival fight. They think they are, and on some levels, emotionally, energetically, mentally, they are, but not physically. But what comes in here as a promoting factor, and therefore something that has always been part of my mission here, not to explain myself, but to let you guys know what motivates me, is this idea that number one, love and light heals all, and number two, that as spiritual people, we have to accept these things, and we have to be nice, and we have to suck it up, and then all this misfigured law of attraction stuff, So if this is what you attract into your life, well, then there's got to be something wrong with you. Okay, these are extremely dangerous mindsets that, if they come together with a person who is already on the empathetic and on the codependent side of things, okay, it's deadly, because now we're not only letting it happen, we also enabling it on top of everything. And guess what? The narcissist knows that. He or she uses it against us. I have never seen an area with more narcissists than in the New Age spirituality scene. And then the victims feel guilty about being victims. Okay, and don't dare to talk about it because everybody else would judge them based on what they manifest in their lives. Okay, guys, this is total BS. This is good when you have a little bit of psychological background info, because no, there are some things that are never okay. They just aren't. Okay, it don't matter what your belief is. They just aren't. But when on top of everything we have this sort of spiritual specialness, which is a form of narcissism, that makes us believe, well, we can heal this. We can fix this. Well,
And not
that's,
only for the New Age stuff, but tap into many religious sectors
oh
and
yeah.
the leaders of those. Anyway, without getting too judgmental.
Yeah, it's the magical thinking. Okay, so
Yeah,
the New Age spirituality has brought in magical thinking, and magical thinking, that's when I talk about waterfalls and unicorns. And don't get me wrong, guys, I think that waterfalls and unicorns are very magical and I love them. But to misuse them as a magic wand, okay, to resolve 3D problems, that is, excuse me, my directness here, straight out, it's stupid. It's it's not only immature and naive, it's stupid. Okay? We have been tricked into something here. Okay? And that's the part that we need to reconcile with ourselves. The fact that we've been tricked into something. Let me ask you guys here. Out of all uh, guilt and shame processes out of everything that you could be embarrassed about. Is having been tricked into something that you couldn't see or that you couldn't realize what it was. Hang on a sec. Who of you thinks that that's the worst kind of embarrassment? Like having been tricked into something that you really didn't see coming. Like, you know, you were just like a not just a victim, you were a dumb victim. Yeah, my hand is risen as okay, this is like 75% of us. But that's worse than anything. Okay, I mean, you know, if I get hit by a car because there was a drunk driver, okay, that's kind of like bad luck, right? Or bad karma. But manifesting abusive relationships over and over again, losing money over and over again, things like that, you know, there is a part in us that says, hey, wait, you know, something ain't right. No matter how much you believe in conspiracy theories or how bad the world is, how come this all only happens to me? Julian, I like what you're sharing. You know, there's something that is always true, and that is all humans deserve this respect and humbleness for their journey. Nobody knows better until they know better. Yes, and that is something, you know, that comes in with a higher level of consciousness, but it is also something that can be a little bit of a hindrance when you deal with a narcissist. Why is that? We're going to go through this here in detail today, but I want to give you guys for the intro here the heads up. When you deal with a narcissist, you're dealing basically with raw, pure ego. Ego's consciousness level is below truth. In other words, you cannot beat or out-vibrate the narcissist with going in with your higher vibratory understanding only. When you are being mugged and there is a guy standing in front of you holding a knife or a gun to you and says, give me your purse or whatever, or else I shoot you, this cannot be resolved with love and light. This may sound a little duh, but this is how you have to think when you work with the narcissistic subject here in other people. Yes, exactly. And part of the reason is because you're dealing with a person who has different goals, different alignments, and different conscious levels than you do. No empathy, no remorse, no regrets, no intention of ever taking accountability for what they're doing or saying. No problem with lying. No, I mean, it doesn't matter how you twist or turn it. This is not a person that will ever, and I think, Cheryl, that was you actually last time, right? There is no hope this person will ever turn around and say, and come to you after 20 or 30 or 40 years or whatever, make amends and say, hey, I'm so sorry that I was so narcissistic back then and that I didn't, you know, or that I couldn't show you love or whatever. You know,
Yeah, I
I
thought
see.
if my mom got dementia, she'd forget about all of it and
No,
apologize.
no,
Nah.
the absence of empathy is the absence of something that doesn't grow, you know, that just goes worse with
But you
people.
know what? In hindsight, that's pretty funny. My mom probably won't get dementia.
No, she'll have Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is one of those diseases, or Parkinson's, actually.
Oops.
Anyway,
Anyway,
yes, Janet is saying, yes, they're not interested. They're not interested. And you say in a different way. Yes, they're not interested in it in a different way. That is, they are interested in you, but not in what you think it is. Okay, they're interested in you, basically devoting yourself to them, and that is the priority. And we do not ever, we cannot ever forget that. Here's another sharing. In my case, it's mostly been toxic bosses and social expectations, which has skewed my sense of normalcy. The healing for me has been to expose myself to other points of view. I wouldn't say I still I still know my traumas fully, so it's helpful to look at clues in this form. Yes, so of course, when we talk about bosses, when we talk about parents, when we talk about partners, is the circumstances are a little different each time, but the 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 underlying behaviors are the same, okay? And they all belong to the same cluster, and that is people in our lives that are somehow, at least that we somehow see higher than ourselves. Okay, there's something authoritarian about that. Okay, so they have a power over us, if you will. But and you know, this is, say, with parents and bosses, that's normal. That's part of that social construct. Okay, that we respect them, that we, to a degree, perhaps even want to obey them. But there is a boundary of that, and this is where when we experience narcissistic abuse, where we can't really see where those boundaries are, what is okay and what isn't. We lose that, as you called, sense of normalcy. And that's when we have to go literally back to the basics and treat ourselves like kindergarteners, okay, and go back to like fundamental truths. Okay, I have a 5-year-old, a preschooler here, and it's wonderful to relive all this. Okay, the things that they're learning in school. There are some things that are never okay. Lying is never okay. Destroying other people's property or taking things away from others is never okay. Okay, no matter what kind of religion or society, culture you belong to, those things are never okay. And then there are things that are always okay. Kindness is always okay. Compassion, forgiveness is always okay. Beauty and joy and humor, that's always okay. There are things that are expansive due to the nature of themselves, not the content. If I give a person a flower, no matter who it is, that's in every culture, in every society, in every religion, that's okay. That's a good thing because that makes the person feel, appreciated or whatever. If I say a kind word or show a kind gesture, that's always okay. All right, so let's I need to talk faster here so we don't run into issues with time again. Let's look at the what we want to go through here. We need to look at sort of the trauma one more time, like what we're actually up against, so that we can better understand the energetics of leaving a narcissist. Okay, once more, this can mean leaving a job because of the boss, or the co-workers can be narcissistic as well. This can be leaving a partner, obviously, but it can also be leaving our family constellation. Okay, so we'll talk about that in specifics as well, so that we can better understand it and understand the recovery process and what we can expect in regards to closure. How narcissists get to us, it was subject of these past 3 workshops here. So I've been summarizing, and I still do this for you. So this workshop will also lead to another summary, namely the specifics of the recovery process. But here, just the past infographics, signs that we actually are in a toxic relationships. Then the insight that narcissists and empaths are both energetically sensitive, and that they actually exist on the same sliding scale of things. And the codependent empath, which is basically the flip side of the narcissist. So the narcissist is out there to get energy from others, no matter what the cost. The codependent wants that as well, has the same goal, but does that in the opposite way. It will sacrifice him or herself in order to get it. Okay, so the bottom line of putting a codependent and a narcissist facing each other is that both are toxic. Both behavior patterns are toxic, but one is more destructive or damaging for the other, and that would be the narcissistic behavior, and the codependent behavior is more self-destructive. But both are toxic, guys. So that's something that I really want to get across, that you understand that both behavior patterns are toxic. Okay. And also the magnet. Then we're dealing with different types of narcissism. So when we will talk about the recovery process and what to expect, I want you to understand that depending on what kind of narcissism you're dealing with in the person, you can see different kinds of reactions, stereotypical reactions, and I will reduce it down to two different scenarios, okay, that are most common when you leave a narcissist or narcissistic constellation of some sort. We talked in depth about the narcissistic traits themselves and the behaviors, basically the ego aspects here that are being played out through narcissistic behavior. And we talked about the detailed mind games and manipulation tactics that are being used. Okay. Now, when you look at the manipulation tactics, you see that they have an underlying agenda that, you know, even if you find that you have narcissistic traits yourself, that you don't necessarily do. Okay. So obviously we're on a sliding scale here. Okay. So I've discovered, you know, a while back that there are quite a few of these that I do too, in a sort of soft and covert way, but there were some things that I would never do. Okay. And the narcissist typically does them all, you know, in different or varying degrees. We've talked about the narcissistic objective again here. This is about narcissistic supply. Those are lingo words in conjunction with the empath narcissist relationships, and you know, why they do all this. So it's all really to fill in their own emptiness, their own lack of sense of self, and also actually their own lack of empathy, because what it actually means is that they're not feeling. They're not feeling. Okay. And so the a way for them to compensate for that is to live through the feelings of others. Okay. But we're not here to investigate the narc. We want to investigate what it's like to leave the narc. And so we need to understand the trauma a little better, that, you know, we've looked at this, the 20 signs of unresolved in general, you know, restored pain. And those produce quite a bit of fears in us. And this is here part of this workshop that we need to investigate. And that is, you know, when you realizing that you are in a narcissistic relationship, okay, what is holding you back from ending it? What makes it so difficult to leave? And there are some fundamental fears here. I mean, these fears exist in any relationship, but when dealing with a narcissist or narcissistic personality, you know, these fears are stronger. First of all, there's an actual fear of anger, a lashing out, and violence or direct damage. And for some of us who were raised in a narcissistic family, that may be very real. I would like to know here from those present, raise your hand, guys, if you as a child have experienced threats, violence, and not just against yourself, against your mother or against your siblings. I mean, like, that was real life, you've seen it. It's not just, I mean, maybe not experience it yourself like on your own body, but have seen it, even if it was just verbal or emotional abuse happening, even at work. You know, when you see your boss ranting about another person or completely annihilating, this complete annihilation, these rage beast outbursts. Who of you experienced this real life? Okay, this is okay. All right, guys. There's only one person who's not raising her hand, and I know she has too. So that's all of us. That's 100%. Okay. So in a person who's been traumatized by a narcissist, that is a real fear, real fear. Another fear is losing the ideal, and that's a bit more complex because now comes our own expectations. So when it comes to, like, say, leaving a narcissistic marriage, you know, there were some aspects of this marriage. There are always aspects of being with the narcissist that come across as perfect. And so there's a fear of losing this ideal and letting go of this fantasy, you know, because we want it to be real. In other words, you know, this can be very complex, but we get seduced into that ideal, and that ideal was projected onto us. So when it's with narcissistic parents, it's the golden child syndrome. Okay, the golden child syndrome is when you are the one that is constantly being praised and constantly being put up on a pedestal, and you know everybody else is either being measured or being sort of compared with that, and being made, you know, scapegoats or black sheeps. Okay, the golden child is just as damaged as the black sheep, guys. Don't ever forget that. All right, because the golden child got seduced into that position. Okay, and our ego then is afraid of losing that. If you were raised in a highly dynamic narcissistic family, then the golden child and the black sheep child could alternate, I mean, throughout the day. Okay, and it was always a matter of, like, trying to maintain that favorite position, you know, so that you're not the one that gets beaten up or that gets shunned. Okay, because it's like there is this, either the ideal, and that is the 100%, you're like 100% the best, or there's 100% annihilation, 100% nothing, all the way to you don't exist. And that is part of the biggest trauma in us, is that with a narcissist, it's always either or. It's either 100% the best or 100% nothing. And when the narcissist is happy with you, and you're the golden child, you get love bombed, you get praised, you get everything you always wanted, but only for as long as you do it, what they want from you. And the moment you don't, that's when they drop you. And that's when they pull the rug from underneath you. Everything they've ever said, they negate it. They've never said that you're the worst, and you're 100% nothing, all the way to you are not existing. And that's why this fear is very, very real, guys. This is very real, because this ideal has been implanted into you. Whether it's real or not is irrelevant. Yes, Janet, it's not intellectual, it's not rational, but it is real, very real. Yes. Thank you for your comments, Janet. I see them all. Yes. Yes, Cheryl, and you found out that your dad made you the golden child. And I want you guys to be very, very careful, because I know this through coaching with many of you, that you seem to have this sort of mean parent and the good parent in your memory. But with everything that you now know from narcissism, I want you to rethink this. I want you to rethink who was the more narcissistic parent. Because having been seduced into the golden child, the trophy child position by a parent, shows their narcissism. Then another fear that is also, again here, those are irrationally high levels of fear of being alone. Because part of this intoxication, if you will, was that they have created a feeling, a sensation in us. You know, with a parent, golden child, yeah, it's exaltation. It's ecstatic. It's a dopamine rush we've never experienced before. Oxytocin, all kinds of stuff. Our neurotransmitters are completely high. It's actually comparable with taking heroin. It's an opiate. It's yes, it's a dopamine hit. Exactly, Julian. Even a stepfather. It's an opiate. It's a pain reliever. It's a bliss maker. It's everything we ever wanted. And they've injected this to us. They basically pimped us with it so that we become dependent on them, so that we externalize our power to them, just like how we would externalize our power to a drug. And this is why we need to cover this here in the Sacred Self-Healing community, because it plays directly into our ego addiction. Leaving a narcissist is like recovering from heroin. The exact same stages of recovery and more complex. So what happens as a result that we see here in our real life, even though we have been abused, we have been beaten up, we have been everything, we have been annihilated, everything has been taken away from us, we still go back and forth. We have withdrawal symptoms that are physical, so strong that we can't believe even our own realizations anymore. And on top of that, and this is the part here that is very difficult to explain for people who don't have a little bit of training, is that there are intense energetic ties, because narcissists are energetically sensitive and they have very high level skills of projecting. And they can make you feel these energetic ties physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically at all times. The most skilled energetic abusers are narcissists, and they're good at it, guys. You're afraid of demons? I'd be more afraid of narcissists, okay? Because they got you. You're not afraid of them. You want them. That's the deception. And of course, you know, the fear of our own guilt and shame, you know, what Cheryl so beautifully demonstrated for us earlier, you know, because we go into the self-beat up, into the self-destruction. And we're afraid of that, of course. Yes. So again, here, the fear of being alone, you know, because we have been pimped with this ideal, with it's still an ideal, Shri, that that you fear when you feel that you're alone, because especially when we come from cultures where, as a female, you know, we're basically, I mean, don't get me wrong, but you know how I mean this. I mean, it's more differentiated than I'm saying this right now, but where a female alone isn't worth much. Okay, so there's some cultures, you know, that actually promote narcissism in that way, you know, that we, under certain circumstances, need that relationship, that marriage. And there's even jobs, you know, that you can't get when you're not married, or, you know, you know what I'm getting at. There's a social value that our ego perceives as needed in order to feel value, to feel worth. And when that goes away, we feel unworthy. Let me ask here in this audience, guys, how many of you, just to get an idea here, how many of you have felt this utter sense of loneliness after leaving a abusive or toxic relationship? Okay. Okay, that's almost all of us. Yeah. Who of you had, yes, that's all of us. Yeah. Who of you had, and again here, regardless of the amount, and the degree of abuse, has had children involved in that? Okay, it's a few, that's a less. Okay, we have lots of singles here today. Okay, those of you who had children, who of you were almost more afraid of being a single parent than being a narcissistic abuse victim? Yeah, that's another issue that comes in with the fear of loneliness. It's not so much like just the subjective perception of being lonely, or being alone. It's also how we are being regarded by others, like say our family or our societies or whatever. So don't forget that. Don't underestimate that. Yes. So there's a fear of that. Yes. And of course, we get to this in the last 2 episodes of this workshop series, when we're going to talk, in number 5, we're going to talk about after we've left a narc with children, what it's like to have a narcissist as a co-parent. And then number 6 will be what it's like to be in court with a narcissist. Okay, very entertaining, very good subjects that you can look forward to. But obviously, if it doesn't concern you, then you may not find that so appealing. But those of you who know what I'm talking about. So we need to understand what we're up against. Number 1 problem is, of course, the boundary issue, the skewed boundaries, the skewed sense of normalcy. You guys already mentioned all of this. Here is a summary, and this is a new infographic for you. The summary of all energetic and psychosomatic trauma that is left in us, okay? And this is something that you really need to study. If you want to understand what you are up against within yourself, you need to know what your trauma is, okay? So on top of the absolutely hilarious behavior of the narcissist when you want to leave them, you are dealing with these traits from within yourself. These are all trauma traits. Okay? And I don't want to go through them right now because in one way or another, we've already talked about them. I want you to study this. I want you to print this out and put this on your fridge. Okay? Same with this one. Okay, so what's this like? So first of all, when you come to this realization, right, that you are in an abusive, toxic relationship or job, or let's exclude parents here for a sec, because there's a different slide for parents, for families, because that's obviously a little different. You can't really choose to leave them. I mean, you can, but it's a different process. So you have realizations about your relationship. One is, that you constantly feel like you have to cover things up. There's a constant cover up going on. And you also notice that this is kind of making you incongruent with yourself and incongruent with your friends too, with people around you, because you constantly produce this ideal, okay? Whether you are silently doing this, by being complicit, by not saying anything to your family or your friends, or it's you still wanting this ideal and pretending yourself. Who of you has found themselves in a place, be it job, be it, a family, be it a relationship, of pretending that everything is fine? And even making up for it, maybe even adding one, and sort of idolizing it too, is your friends, how great it is, how perfect he is or she. Yes, that's more than half of us. That's me included. Yes, that's part of the problem. This is how we become complicit, guys. And these secrets, or these allowing this deceit on, towards the outside world to continue to happen makes us sick. It makes us sick. So one of the realization that people have when they get ready to leave a narcissist is that they're actually getting sick. They're like deteriorating physically, emotionally, mentally, all the way to like being completely out of control, a complete wreck, and physically degrading, or having chronic diseases, depending on how long you've been with a narcissist. Guys, that is so common. So when people get sick, that's usually something that can function like a wake-up call. You also realize that there's a bit of a doubt coming in, namely this perfection. So perfection is a very important part of this whole constellation, whether it's the perfect job, the perfect husband, the perfect father, the perfect whatever. And you want it to be perfect. But at the same time, there's a part of you that kind of knows that somehow this isn't. But you have this addiction to perfection, so you have to make it perfect. And that's where you violate yourself. That's what increases this rift, this fragmentation in yourself. This is what ruptures and fragments your sense of self. All the way to the realization that you've been enabling the whole thing. Let me ask you guys, who of you, and this includes me, I mean, I'm basically raising my hand for each question because I've been there, found out, whatever way, that they have been enabling the abuse. Consciously or unconsciously. I mean, sometimes we do this unconsciously until we realize, oh my God, listen, I've never even said no. I've pretended along. Yeah, that's the problem. It's more than half of us. Thank you. So the next realization, one of these, and they're not coming in a certain hierarchy, is that when the narc is happy, you're the best. When the narc is unhappy, you don't exist, or it's all your fault. When you get to that place, you start realizing that you are not in control of your life at all. Whether it's the football team, you pray that, their football team wins. Otherwise, your weekend is going to be a mess and it's all your fault. Or you pray that they have a good day at work, or that, whatever. Do you guys know what I mean? It's like, it has nothing to do with you. How your day or your evening or your vacation or your weekend is going to turn out has something to do with where the narc is, how the narc feels. And so naturally, of course, we try to make him happy or her, right? Because if they're not, it's a total disaster. Okay? Another realization is that there's really no consistency. So this has to do with what I just talked about. There's no consistency, and there's nothing you can rely on. There's absolutely no safety and no trust. Your partner, your parent, your boss is constantly flipping back and forth, constantly. And this is, guys, this is really, really damaging. There's no loyalty. It has to do with that idealization, guys. Then there's constant gaslighting. So you, over time, have lost your sense of self and your sense of what's true and what isn't. You doubt yourself. You're like, no, I didn't say this, and they won't let go. They will insist and twist and use word salad and ear shots and all kinds of things to make you believe that you're the one that caused all the problems. They'll go as far as gaslighting everybody around you. They'll talk to your friends, to your, parents, if it's the partner, the co-workers, and they'll say, I don't know what's wrong with her, but, lately she's just been showing, all this. She's like really unstable, and she's like, really narcissistic, and she keeps on saying that everything is everybody else's fault, and I think, you know, we should not judge her on this. So they do this smooth talking, and they do this, it's called collecting or gathering flying monkeys. Okay, they set up your environment for literally, there's some really good movies out there that show that desperation. It set up your environment to basically believing in their view of reality, which then increases your doubt with yourself. Okay. Then, of course, you know, you have the realization that there are some pretty threatening, pretty abusive behaviors, and it's almost embarrassing for you to talk about it to others. Because, of course, you know, the first thing they ask is, oh, well, why have you been allowing that? And this can include sexual abuse, even in work relationships. There are more than you think. There's sexual abuse. Well, we're seeing it being revealed everywhere, in sports teams, in corporations, all kinds of, you know, constellations where narcissistic abuse and sexual abuse go hand in hand. That's where the embarrassment is so strong, because we start feeling guilty too. Okay, again, here, never forget that abuse is also a form of seduction. Your ego has been seduced into it. And of course, we realize that, you know, the narcissist, whomever, you know, we've identified as such, will not take any responsibility for their actions ever. And it will always be you, you know. Again, all that leading to more self-doubt, that lying, manipulating, orchestrating is normal in a relationship, which it shouldn't be, but you've gotten so used to it that, you know, this lying and this manipulating, this orchestrating also needs to be expected. So you expect this, you become suspicious, you are constantly on the lookout because you know something is up. Okay, then triangulating, that has to do with other people, constantly using other people or other people's opinions, or some kind of invisible audience, you know, to manipulate you. And last but not least, the narcissist, and this is one of the strongest manipulation tactics that you're going to realize when you get ready to leave the relationship, is that they're constantly punishing you when you don't act according to, you know, what gives them their supply. Okay, and so these are realizations. And again, here we went through the fears that are coming in at that moment. So they all, the fears all have to do with this. Okay. Justine, gaslighting, I can't repeat this again. There's like at least 3 videos where I explain gaslighting. Okay. It has to do with the manipulation tactics. So look at the charts that I'm providing with these videos, and look at watch the other videos. Sorry. Is it true that that the wearing of energy by narc energy makes one almost go dizzy, like an easy to get complacent because of being physically debilitated? Okay, I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to, but yes, you know, someone who has suffering narcissistic abuse, it's actually a syndrome now called narcissistic abuse syndrome. We've gone through this in the first video. It does show energetic traits. Again, we've gone through all of this already, and that does attract certain things into your life, but that's part of the trauma that needs to be healed. Yes, and malnourishment, you know, is things like, you know, I said it makes you sick. So, you know, whichever physical symptom then comes forward for you, you know, depends on your setup. You know, anything with nourishment, usually a second chakra, first and second chakra. So that has a little bit to do with your composition, where it grips. But people can also have end up with arthritis, end up with actual debilitation, like mobility, like, you know, hip issues. back issues and so forth, not being able to actually move forward, not actually being physically able to leave the narc. It's part of the gaslighting, that we think that we are dependent on them. Okay, so how does the discard process then look like? Okay, there are some rules here. So discard is narc empath lingo. That is the leaving process. Okay, it's called discard because it's something that cannot go harmoniously. This is the number one rule in leaving a narcissistic relationship or constellation. This is not going to go over peaceful, guys. It's the number one thing that you need to remember. The objective is supply. And if you remove supply, you're dealing with a 3-year-old throws a tantrum because you took the lollipop away. And that's exactly the visual that I want you to keep in your mind. There is no rationality to be expected. But there are two different kinds of narcissistic stereotype behavior in a discard situation. And one is this begging and, oh my God, and please come back to me, and crying, and you're the best, and I've never, and I will never ever. And, most of the love songs out there are pretty narcissistic, actually. And the hoovering. The other stereotypical narcissist reaction is they turn around. You've just now decided that you may be going to leave the narcissist, and they've already moved on, and they're posting pictures on Facebook with their new partner, whom they just fallen in love. I mean, they couldn't have fallen in love with them from a long time ago, because you just told them yesterday that you were considering to leave them, and now the next day they already have found the love of their life and they've moved on, like as if you never existed. Has anyone experienced that? And Denise is saying, yes, thank you for reminding us of leaving is not pretty. No, when you're with a narcissist, it cannot be harmonious. And this is, exactly why it's so difficult for you to leave a narcissist, because you are afraid of confrontation. You are afraid of conflict. And that is what's being used against you. So you do need to know that it's going to be ugly in whatever way. Maybe not on the outside. Maybe you get to a good, sort of legal way of pulling it all apart, or, it goes smoothly. But energetically, you go through hell. Okay, so we're going to look into this. So the discard rules here, this is very, very important for you. And if you think that, the relationship that you're in is not that bad, and okay, then disregard all this. But you have this here on video, and if you ever need instructions on how to leave a narcissist for real, so that they leave you alone, because the biggest issue is that they're not going to leave you alone, even if they pretend that they've moved on, which they will shove into your face over and over again, so that you end up doubting yourself, that it was all your fault, because, now that they're so happy with that other person, it must have been your fault, right? They are still continuing to suck your energy, and that's why you need to heed those discard rules. Rule number 1, 100% no contact. 100%, that is no exception, guys. Absolutely no exception. I've seen this in the etheric. I know the energy of a narcissist and what it does to a person. It's like beyond giving a small finger and them taking a hand. They take more. They take everything. They scrape the last bit of love out of you. Okay, 100% no contact. Block the number on your phone. Shut down all your social media accounts. Shut them down. They'll go to lengths. They'll have fake accounts and whatnot, just to spy on you, just to, be with, see pictures of you through others. Do not react to any, of course, this isn't supposed to be text, emails, letters, sending flowers, etc. Nothing. Do not react. Do not react. Try not to explain yourself to others, and do not try to justify or convince others. Do not try to explain to them how you have been staying quiet all these years and how bad it actually was. Do not do this. Why? First of all, chances are that they've been manipulated over the years anyway. But second of all, it's not important in the discard process. You're dealing with other issues. That's not your main problem. Other people are not your main problem. You need to actually cut all ties with everyone who's in contact with the narc. This is a little more complicated when it's your family. Okay, that's why I wanted to single this out. You need to ignore all smear campaigns and the hoovering that the narc does. So smear campaigns, do you guys know what that is? That's narc lingo. It's like pulling you into the dirt, telling everybody what a terrible mother you are, what a terrible person you are, what a liar you are, your business is a lie, blah, 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 blah. Smear campaigns. It's 100% stereotypical. Do not react to attempts to rekindle at all. And they'll do this years later. Never react. It has nothing to do with love. Nothing. And here comes the part for energetically sensitives and empaths, and codependents. On top of that, do not even think of the narc. Refer to the narc as the one whom you don't want to say the name. How do they say this in Harry Potter? The one that we don't speak of. Okay? Do not pull in the narc at all. Not in thought, not in word, not even in your dreams, fantasies, or in your daydreams, ever. Do not go back into memories. Do not go into, what it could have been and how nice it was. No, you got to cut this off. I'm dead serious, guys. Do not ever allow etheric interaction. Ever. Use all psychic and etheric defense techniques you know. And if you don't know any, learn them, because you're going to need them. And you need to do etheric clearing sessions. Not just one. These hoovering tactics, we don't have the time to go through this, but it's basically, everything that's in here. This is all the stuff that they'll do. That's why I come across so intensely here, because those all, of course, imply the things that they will do, okay, to maintain their narcissistic supply. What are the biggest discard mistakes? So what do you guys think? I want to get a guess from you guys here before you fall asleep or get bored. And you can either text or say it out into the microphone. What do you guys think is the number one mistake people do when they try to leave a narcissist?
I don't know if it's the number one mistake, but
Or your number one mistake too, what you've experienced, yeah.
I forget. Like, I just completely forget everything, and then I just forget as if it never happened, and then it's like I'm starting fresh.
Thank you, Justine. And this is exactly part of the trauma. This is not just you. You are not crazy. This is your trauma. Cheryl said something similar. Okay, I just want you to understand that.
For me, it has been throughout my life, thinking there can be harmony, and then I go back into it, and then I'm drained again, and then it's back and forth, and then that's been my biggest mistake.
The hope, right? Seeing the light in him, right? Oh God, yeah, I see his true self, and it's so beautiful. His 3D self is an asshole, but his true self is so beautiful. Maybe one day, I can bring it out of him. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, it goes along here with Julianne trying to be amicable. See what, how we can, how maybe we can be nicer to each other now. Guys, this is a total freaking illusion. If you were with somebody and they didn't get to ever be nice to you, why would they be nicer to you when you're not in a relationship? That's one of those really weird mindsets that people have. is that if something that we couldn't work out while we still had the goal of living our life together, spending our future together, that this would be easier to resolve when you don't have that goal anymore, when you're not committed at all, and especially when there's children involved. Guys, if you're a parent, co-parent with a narcissist, and you couldn't agree on how to raise your children, and whatever, you saw abusive behavior there, do not believe that this will get an inch better when you divorced. Everything that you couldn't resolve when you were still married and still trying to be good parents is going to get worse when you're divorced. Okay? And forgive me the intensity here, guys, but there are some things that really need to come across here. Why this discard? Why I call this discard rules? This is like you have to literally. This is just like rehab. It's the exact same thing. You have to treat the recovery process, the first stage of that. You have to treat it like rehab. Yes, and Janet, there's always this lingering of their energy. Okay, and that's why. Some of these things. So which do you think are the biggest mistakes that you've done, or that people do when they discard? Based on these discard rules, where you guys explained why you fell into the back and forth, why you went back like a rubber band, but how did it start, or where did you disregard those rules? The dreams, the fantasy. Yep. Most people actually already fail to do this here, number one. So, they do react to text and emails.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much all of it.
Yeah. I mean, the last three, I get this. You don't know this when you're not trained in energy. You don't see this, but somebody who's seen it, I've seen it. I see this with you guys. Everyone who has energy coaching with me, I see that. Yes, and of course, this belief that, oh yeah, one day they'll change. Yes, one day they'll change. They'll come to their senses, right? One day they'll be a better person. Yeah, but this is all brainwash stuff, because you forget they don't want to be a better person. They don't think there's anything wrong with what they're doing. Something that you cannot imagine. You got to remember this. You cannot imagine that. So here, these are the number one. These are the most common discarding rules. People, the victims, the narc abuse victims, they do react because, of course, oh my God, he's thinking of me. Oh my God, maybe he still loves me. Maybe he has this turnaround. Maybe he becomes a better, maybe he really wants to try. If that's not it, one of the biggest mistakes that we try to do is we turn to others, and we're trying to explain ourselves, and we're trying to explain the relationship, and we're trying to explain to them what a narc is, or her, or she. Okay, that's a big mistake. Who of you has found out, in maybe not just because of all the educational work that we do here, but in the course of your life, that you've had narcissistic parents, and you went and suddenly realized that and wanted to talk about this with your siblings or with your partner and convince them that you can't do that. This is something that everybody has to come to themselves. Okay, chances are that, especially siblings, that they've been traumatized in their way. They were either the golden child or the black sheep, so they have a different view. One rule in narcissistic families is that the children, the individual children, will have very individual experiences. They will all experience their parents completely different. Why is that? Because that's part of the narc tactics, to single them out, okay, to play favorites, to give them all a different version of self, because there is no consistency. Okay. You know, if you complied with all of this, a lot of us get weak when they start the smear campaigns, when they really start making your life hell. You know, when they go to your boss and they tell them, you know, what you know you've said about them, and how you're just a fake, and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's when most of us lose it, because all this injustice and all this abuse trauma, you know, the anger, the repressed anger that we have is then coming out. And when we lose it here, oh, that's when we lost. That's when we are back in the web. Okay. And obviously here, the etheric interaction, you know, most people are not even aware of this, but those of you who are aware of this, that is a big no-no, a big no-no. You never get rid of them out of your energy. That trauma, you'll carry that karmically into your next lifetimes. Yes, you had to remember this so many times, Julian. Please, this is a really, really big. And I have clients who come to me and Jeff just for this particular problem, because they need help with energetically removing the narcissist out of their energy field. Does doing the webinar activate the think of some? You know, yes, but we're coming from a place that, you know, that does actually, that's also why I have this intensity with it, because I'm not trying to sugarcoat or explain or create hope. It may bring in the memory of your experience, but not necessarily the energetic tie itself. Okay. For those of you who are still finding themselves under the influence of a narcissist, okay, you know, again here, this is just like treating a substance addiction, okay? So what you're experiencing is withdrawal, and obviously, you know, just like when the alcoholic or the heroin addict is in the separation phase, where you separate yourself from the alcohol, from the substance. Yeah, well, I mean, talking about alcohol doesn't necessarily bring it in, but definitely the exposure. So that's why the no contact rule is so important, because you know, you can maybe think of alcohol when you are a recovering alcoholic, but going into a bar definitely lowers your energetic immune system. Okay, so it's more the tactile and the emotional experience of that then you know, coerces you back in. Okay, which is why the no contact rule is so important. And etherically, guys, it's the same for you energetically sensitive. Energetically sensitives, etheric contact is a tactile experience, and in your brain it's just like as if it happened. So don't underestimate this. As soon as I had a thought of an old ex-narc boyfriend, I told him fuck off. Yes, you know, Julianne, that's you know, advanced already, because this is not friendly. This is an intrusion of your energy field, and this needs to be treated as an attack. When somebody's trying to get your energy, when somebody's intruding your space, when somebody is trying to suck something out of you, okay, that is an etheric attack. There is no sugarcoating it. This is what it is. This is not friendly. There is no need for negotiation. Here's what I tell my 5-year-old. When somebody bullies you, because that's in essence what it is, so there's 3 stages to that. Number 1, say no. Number 2, say no more sternly. Okay. And number 3, that's you kick them out. Okay. It's 1, 2, 3. 1 is the no, 2nd is the warning, and number 3 is the action. You got to kick them out with everything, with all senses. Yes, it requires a strong stance, but that's also how you build the stance. You have to build the stance. Okay, so let's look at the recovery stages that we go through. Again, here, this is, the exact same process when you go through recovery from loss, when you go through recovery from substance addiction. It's the same thing. The first thing is the shock, and that often comes with, this deep, deep disappointed realization that this was never about love, that you've been never loved. This is hard. This is really hard. And perhaps also, especially for you spiritual folks, that the higher route, this like, oh, maybe we can work this out with niceness. Maybe we can, that doesn't work. It does not work. So the first phase is the shock, and it's a form of disgust almost with yourself. You feel so ugly because you feel like, oh my God, this is so heartless. Was this all a lie? Did he never love me? And it makes you feel completely unworthy. And it often, pushes a person into this slightly self-destruct. Okay, this is the very first stage when you going into the breakup. The second stage, the denial, is then where, yeah, well, it can be all kinds of denial mechanisms. So it could be jealousy, where you think, oh, it's got to be somebody else. I bet, he's been, rekindling with his ex, or, he's got a girlfriend on the side. I've always known it. Some kind of obsession, to prove that the past couldn't have been real. Like even if it is, you all blaming yourself. Okay, that's a form of denial. Now, this gets, of course, fired up when when you're dealing with the second type of narcissist that pretends, or that produces the projection that he's already moved on, and that with his new partner, that this pretend game, that it's all better now. This is all a show for you guys. You got to understand this. This is all just for you, to make you, even more desperate, and ultimately to make you beg to be able to come back. Number 3 is the self-doubt. That's where most of you guys get stuck in. We're so desperate for this need of validation, that we need someone to tell us, that yes, this was an abuse, okay? And if we can't have that, and like I've said with the flying monkeys, with the people around you that have already been preempted for this, you probably won't get it. Okay, and so you either, beat yourself up in the process, like, oh my God, could I have been so stupid, so dumb, what a show demonstrated for us in the beginning. Or you go into the other extreme, and you start vilifying the other. Okay, either one, is not based on truth. Either one of these mechanisms in you come from self-doubt. Okay, this is a phase where you need to educate yourself, and it's okay to go through a phase of obsession with it, where you obsess about it, where you binge watch, those workshops or whatever, read and binge watch YouTube videos about narcissism. That's fine. But understand that the viewpoint that you have at that phase 3, is not very sophisticated. Okay, it's based on victimization and vilifying the other, and that is not very sophisticated in the sense that it's still ego based. It's still positionalized, and it's still based on good or bad. Okay, the truth is that you've been coerced into this, your ego's been seduced into this, and now you're going to have to face your own ego stuff to get out of it. And that's painful. That's where, the resistance, the true resistance lies in the recovery stage, in the recovery process. So next then comes this, need to understand, like, how could this be? Was this really all a lie? I mean, he's not that bad of a person. Sorry that I use he as a gender specific here. That's just sort of coming from my own experience, just to so this can be just as much male as female. We're trying to find reasons, we're trying to sympathize somehow. Oh, he had a rough childhood. Yeah, I understand. There's so many things that we can come up with in that understanding phase. But what's really important here is that we remind ourselves of the objective of a narcissist, and that is to get our energy to control us, to get to suck out of us what they want from us, and then to discard us. So this is what we've experienced over all these years. It's either the inflate and burst, or the push and pull, or the hurt and rescue, you name it. All these mechanisms, these manipulation mechanisms we talked about in the past workshops here. So there is no way of rationally understanding this unless you realize that this is what a narc is. Okay, you have to accept the nature of a narcissist and understand that there is no empathy, and that this doesn't have anything to do with how you see it. Okay? You have to understand that. And then, of course, comes the anger phase, number 5. That's when you truly, truly disgusted with it, and when you truly see the dark nature of that. And that's, when people can get obsessed with, perhaps even wanting to retaliate, and and that's often when we process a lot of that. We have to, now we also have to process our own anger, and we're, we want to talk to other people, and we want to, ideally we go to support groups, but I have to tell you, most support groups aren't very sophisticated either, because they just, they commiserate, and they continue the demonization and the vilifying of the narcissist without any, deeper reflection. And so you're gonna have to use discernment there. Okay, you're gonna have to understand that there is no harmony with that. This is a perpetrator kind of thinking. Okay, you will never get this if you are not a perpetrator. Number 6 then, and this is where the rage really sets in, is that you realize that you were never loved. And that, of course, can throw us then into stage number 7, which is a deep depression, where we realize, oh my God, and this is particularly rough with our parents too. To see that we've never actually been taught love, that this isn't unconditional, and so forth. So in the depression phase, it's very important that we don't isolate. Okay, this is very, very important. Because what with depression, they say depression, is anger turned inward. Okay, so it can become very self-destructive, and this is usually when we realize that we really have some kind of self-love deficiency here. Okay, and that's actually the main objective of all this work that I do, to show this to you, how to recover that. Yes. Yeah, I see your comments here, Julian. I'll pick up on them here in a little bit. So that's when we have to go into phase 8 and really develop compassion for ourselves. So thank you, Cheryl, for letting us experience this with you. How when these things suddenly turn on in you, where you realize, oh my God, I don't have to beat myself up. This is part of my trauma itself. Okay. And with that, then, this is when healing starts to actually take place. we develop the courage to do something, the courage to focus on ourselves. This comes with self-care and with, you know, formulating new goals for ourselves and going into the self-discovery. This is when a lot of people come to me or here to this self-healing environment, you know, where they want to discover their true selves. They want to communicate with their true self again. Yes, this is what you need to focus on. And then actually learning all these different things about self-healing that then allow them to begin to thrive again, and perhaps even a step further to become inspiring. So in recovery language, it's very common that at some point of your recovery, you want to give back, you want to provide service to others, you want to do those, you know, AA meetings or self-healing meetings. You know, I encourage you guys to do self-healing meetings. So ask me about this if you don't know what those are. You know, where you do free, you know, meditation and discussion circles based on the step meditations. Okay, so you want to go a step farther, and you really want to help others as well and increase sort of your own radiance and your own healing through that. But you know, in order to fully understand really what broke us, you know, or what continues to break us, is which mindsets, which beliefs in us are the ones with which they get us. And especially, of course, if we've had narcissistic parents, we'll always have that in our life as a thread, because, you know, our sense of normalcy, our sense for real, our sense, you know, the role modeling of social behavior, the rules of engagement that we have been primed with, they're skewed. But this is the most important slide here for you guys. The mindsets that break you. Number one, the belief that you are the only one, that you have been singled out, But that's part of the manipulation tactic, okay? It's like how lions hunt, okay? They single one out and then they strike, okay? And in that moment, you think you're the only one, but that's part of the trauma. You're not the only one. It's just that everybody whom this happens to believes that, which is why self-help groups are so important. It really disappoints your worldview. I mean, it shatters your worldview, and it can lead to you losing faith in humanity. It destroys your self-esteem. Yes, Julianne here calls it character assassination. That's exactly correct. I talked about this in the last workshop. There is a distorted sense of self. It's actually a complete, you know, absence of sense of self, because this individuation process never took place for narcissists, and they have not been able to form secure attachment with their parents. So they have no sense of self, and therefore it's a pathological way of creating a fake sense of self through the other person. And in a narcissistic empath relationship, in an abusive relationship, there is a transfer of that pathology from the narcissist to the empath or to the victim. So it's a character assassination. Your sense of self has been robbed, has been sucked out of you. And, you know, the longer this is going on, the more you'll also feel like a transfer. It's like a swap almost, you know, where you begin to feel like you're the narcissist, and where you even find yourself doing things that are narcissistic as a defense mechanism. We talked about this last time. You have also this other feeling of powerlessness, you know, and this can also then lead to you seeing conspiracies everywhere and so forth, see the whole world as bad, and, you know, there's no hope for humans. Another thing is that you have this you've lost your ability to discern. You know, your sense of normalcy, as Sri called it earlier. You know, what is real through all the gaslighting and crazy making. You lost your sense for normal mostly because you've been so desensitized. This is part of your trauma. This is normal psychology of a trauma victim. You know, that your sense of pain and all that has been messed with, and your whole neurotransmitters, everything is completely messed up. Your sense of feeling, your ability to feel, you had to numb yourself, you had to dissociate, and so you've got a lot of residue of that. Okay, that it does, you know, that has to be rebuilt. But in that moment of realization that this is what broke you, you know, you have to realize that this is part of your self-healing, or has to be part of your self-healing process, even if you got out of that relationship. Your, you know, your ethics, your integrity was violated, and that really makes you question morals, you know, and morals are so double standard here in our society. It's a very, very cool time to actually see this proven how, you know, especially here in the United States, certain morals are shown to be completely fake. And so you can't really assume that just because a person has a, you know, say a good standing in society, because they're liked by everybody, that they're good people. You know, I mean, you know, all research about sociopaths and serial killers shows that they were exceptionally accepted and socially established people in their communities. Okay, so for you to truly understand this, you can't go in with the sane mind, or with the victim mind anyway. It's a predator mindset, and if you don't have a predator mindset, you will never be able to wrap your intellect around this unless you study this in school. It leads us, you know, to have broken values, and this is also something that can break us. And this is all these things here. These are not things that are being broken by the narcissist. It's something that the narcissist also uses against us. We have a skewed, you know, skewed rules of engagement, and we think that kindness is the way. Well, yeah, it is. With someone who's not a predator, it is. But with a predator, no. You can't make a peace treaty with a tiger. It doesn't work, guys. You have a lost sense for logic and objectivity. It's beyond naivete. It's a, like you guys confirmed this earlier. There's this logic, this common sense is gone. Okay, and that's how you can be broken. If you've been primed through narcissistic behaviors in childhood, you will not see it. You will not see it, guys. And I want you to really get this. There isn't anything you did wrong. You will be unable to see this. This needs to be healed. You've lost that. And you can't, therefore, apply logic or, you know, healing methods, mental healing methods. They won't work. Obviously, you know, what breaks us too is our guilt that we have, and the shame. The shame, you know, that we've been it's seduced into this, and you know what this makes us look like. So this is all, you know, things that are part of the cause and part of the consequence. Okay, I need you to understand this. These are your weak spots. This is how you can be broken. This here in the hands of a narcissist, it's like instructions how to break people. So how do you stand your ground, guys? We're running out of time, but we've already talked a lot about this. And as Sacred Self-Healing members, please also resort to the workshop about boundaries for empaths. Please also resort to the workshops about inner child attachments and karma. Every recording pretty much here that we have produced in the last 2 months is about the subject. Okay, you've got at least 20 hours of explaining all this. But it comes down to things such as, okay, you can do whatever you want to, but you don't get to do this or act like this with me or in my space. Very important phrase to learn. This doesn't feel healthy to me. Very important phrase to learn. This is what I need. This is what I want. Very important phrase. I choose differently, advanced level, but very important phrase. And if you still have to play nice, because there are some situations like in work with family members where you kind of have to play nice, where it's not about leaving them, where it's more about getting along with them somehow. And that is, I can see how this looks like from your perspective, but it looks differently from mine. To not engage. There is no way, guys, for you to win a battle with a narcissist. Why? Because there's a predator mindset and you don't have predator mindset, and that means you have absolutely no chance. Etherically, you have a chance if you learn etheric defense techniques, because not many people are trained in that. But their natural aptitude for etheric fight is something that makes their energy so abusive. That's how they get so far with people. But that one you can win. But in 3D, rebuttals, it's very hard to win that. I would never go into the sparring with a narcissist ever. I don't run away either, but I don't go into that fight. I can't win that fight. I know I can't win that fight. When we talk about the narcissist in court, I will give you guys very clear instruction on how to do this in court, how to win in court, but that's using the legal system. Most of that is based on the understanding how the ego of the narcissist works and what their biggest fear is. Their biggest fear is exposure. Okay. So last but not least here, how do you build resilience? This is very, very important in your recovery process. You have to focus on rebuilding yourself, your sense of self, and your life. Okay, if you have a family or had a family with a narcissist and a single parent, focus on rebuilding your own family. Don't isolate, make connection with others, but preferably make connections with people that are not involved in the past with the narcissist. Okay, you got to learn how to reframe your experience and be truthful with yourself to see your own parts in it. Number 4, make a commitment to yourself to strive for more, to bring joy, to bring meaning, to bring purpose to your life. Reconnect with true meaning. Up your self-care and your boundaries. Always include spirituality, not religion necessarily, but spirituality in the sense of true self-connection. Strengthen your true self-connection. Know your needs. You have to repair your nervous system. You have to repair your body. If you've been in relationships with narcissists, you're going to have a residue of that. This is the chart that I said that I told you to study. Because this leaves marks in your energy field. This has to be repaired on a nervous system level, on a neurotransmitters and so forth. That has to do with all the addiction aspect of that relationship. On a nutritional level, because you're most likely malnourished in some ways. Exercise. It has to do with self-care, but also with really understanding the true damage to your physical and emotional and energetic body. Okay, know your wants and goals. You got to realign your priorities. Okay, because one of the ways a narcissist messes with us is through our priorities. They redirect our priorities. And when we come out of a relationship with a narcissist, it's like it takes a while to remember them. It's like we've forgotten them. Okay, number 9, accept and embrace change. Be optimistic. To be honest with you, there's nothing worse than living in that agony of narcissistic abuse. So it can only get better. It can. And number 10, set goals and act. You can do this with a coach, with a mentor, with a sponsor, with someone, who cares. Someone who, is your buddy, you rebuilding buddy. Not someone who commiserates with you, because sympathy is not the same as empathy, guys. Don't ever forget that. Okay? And remember your self-healing powers. You have free will. You have choice at any time in your life. You have the right to choose your own way, your own solutions. Because narcissists will tell you otherwise. Okay? But remember them. Those are your birthrights. You have the right to know who you are and to exercise who you are. You have an alignment to truth. They don't have that. So that's actually a power that you have over them. You don't need to judge. You don't need to judge yourself either. You know your feelings, you know your needs, you know your wants and goals. Your wants and goals, those are your powers if you can have them, if you can form that resilience. And you have the right to be with your true self and to be in connection with your true self. Nobody can take that away from you. And you can let others be. Those are things, those are powers, guys. They have nothing to do with force. And you know that you can also see them as virtues and values in relationships. So when it comes to like, well, I mean, if a toxic relationship is all you know, what would a true self relationship look like, right? When all these things are heated and displayed at any moment. I mean, obviously we all, can go a little low and show ourselves from, sort of more of our weak side, from our low side sometimes. But in a relationship, both partners should have that as value and should act accordingly. Those should be parts of the rules of engagement and parts of the commitment of the relationship. On top of like the normal rules of integrity and truth. Okay. Just real quick here, you can see I'm rushing through this here now. What can you do with narcissistic parents, or your family use constellation, or even sometimes at work where you can't leave them? There's only two things you can do if you are kind of forced to live with a narcissist. Number one is to reduce your expectations. You've got to know what their goal is and what their objective is and what you can expect. You've got to understand that praise from a narcissistic parent or praise from a narcissistic boss is worth nothing, because tomorrow they're going to use it against you. So you're going to have to really reduce your expectations. And number two, you got to reduce exposure to the absolute minimum. The absolute minimum. Those of you who've talked to me about this in energy coaching, I always told you, experiment with it. Find out how much is enough. Okay, when do you start feeling drained? When does it start to get to you with a narcissist? Ideally, if you are working with a narcissist, either co-worker or boss, get out of there. Get a different job, move to a different department or whatever. Get out of there. With your parents, you can still love your parents even if you find out that they have strong narcissistic behavior patterns. But don't expect for them to show you this true love that you are craving for. You're going to have to learn how to produce or how to find this within yourself and how to rebuild this within your own life and your own family. You will never get it. You will never get that validation, that appreciation that you crave, and no matter how much they dangle that carrot. You will never get this. You have to be realistic. It's not the same objective that you have. A narcissist is not interested, does not care for you in that way. They may care for your physical or financial well-being, because as a son or daughter, of course, you are part of their extended sense of self. So the better you do, obviously, the better they can feel about themselves. But beware, you make a mistake. So, personally, I would recommend that you don't share all too much. Because it's going to be used against you. And I don't want to sound pessimistic, guys, but this is reality. And especially when it comes to grandchildren, be really careful, because they're going to continue doing what they've done to you when you were a child, and they're going to put a wedge between you and your husband, between you and your children, because that's all part of this manipulation tactic is part of the grooming that we've already discussed in detail last time. Yes, thank you guys for listening. Okay, here's an important sharing. I'm finding the depression as an overwhelm to deal with all the healing, although I found the only place to go is into compassion, with someone who, yes, I've listened, yeah. I do keep going into some of the narc society things, business, attracting poor landlords and living situations. It can be very challenging to keep a light heart about all these things. Yes. Janet, I understand that. I know exactly what you're talking about. And everyone here who has been in this situation, guys, I know you guys know too. All right. I don't know, other than speaking into a microphone, okay, how to tell you, Janet, that you are not alone in this, and that this can only be healed through time, through compassion, through we can heal, we can help another. Okay. So please, everyone here listening to this recording, these kind of things that we go through is full on real abuse, trauma, rehab. Okay. This is a huge deal. This is not, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. You've been traumatized, but our societies do not recognize that yet. Okay. And keeping attracting the same thing back in is part of the trauma. It requires courage every day. It's like we have from heroin addiction. Go to self-help groups. Janet, it's not enough to just listen to this. You got to be with people. This is a very sort of physical type of thing, And if you can't find a good group right away, because some groups are just commiserating and just re-traumatizing, then keep looking, and if the place where you're at, the town or wherever you live is just like too enmeshed in all this, then get the heck out of there. Start fresh. Okay, everyone. The last lie, I just put this there for myself as a reminder. The last lie that the narcissist will have implanted in you and will make you believe is that it's all your fault, that you're the crazy one, and that they're happy now, more happy without you. That is a lie. Yes, Julianne is recommending learn martial arts. I agree. This helps. It does help on a physical level, but also knowing that you're not alone. Find a new support system. Forget all the people that existed before. This is like starting a new life. This is like starting over. So to come from this survivor place, from this victim place into a survivor place, and then to move in the thriver, that is a very, very courageous thing. It's a heroic journey. And anyone who's ever done rehab from substance addiction or from a similar abuse and trauma knows that. So seek those people who know what you are dealing with. Okay, don't try to get validation from people that are white shadow stuff. Society does not want to deal with this. Our societies are not ready yet to deal with this trauma. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. I hope that you're not being re-traumatized through, calling things out the way they are. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Julianne. Yes, everybody's sending you hearts, Janet. It's really not about commiserating. It's about understanding the severity of this. We know this. Okay. So, guys, have a wonderful recovery process. Understand what you are going through is heroic. Okay. If you have questions, use the forum thread. Please share you know, what this has helped you with, what has helped you, what you know, which information really stuck out for you, and so forth. This always helps others to look at that. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm saying goodbye.